Hello, everyone. I'm Susan Boback, the card connoisseur, and for the last 5 years, I've been focusing on the hobby of card making. Actually, I love anything with ink and color and paper. But for the last 6 months, I've also gone back to one of my hobbies is sewing, and I've learned about junk journals. So today's technique is something that I learned from Kathy at Raven Vintage. She is an accomplished junk journal artist and has many different videos and short reels on different techniques. If you'd like to see her over there, Kathy at Raven Vintage. This is a technique that she used in a page, and she calls it a slider. So I'm going to call this card that you see in front of you a Z-fold slider. And it uses a mechanism, which is a term that's not specific to card making, but if you've done any kind of thing that you have a moving part, even a hinge on a cabinet, it has a mechanism. So you can see this paper that's coming out in May with Stampin Up 2026. It's called Silly Old Bear. And what makes this a slider is Pooh and his friend are going to be able to move up and down. So if you're looking for something for a child or even an adult, an older adult that would love to have a card that's interactive, I'm going to show you how to put together this slider. Now, in this card design, you can see the paper says My House. There's a little trail here. And I have used the stamp set, what is that called? Unbridled Beauty. The words that say it's about the journey. So they're going on this journey. And then it's a Z fold, and it opens up and it says, thanks for being a true friend. So you don't have to make this slider into a Z fold, but that's just what I did here. Again, this is made by Kathy at Raven Vintage. So I'd like to show you the technique, how to put together the mechanism, which every card like this, every slider card, or every page in a journal that's a slider has to have this mechanism. Now I'm just using assorted pieces from my scrap bin actually. And so each one of the sliders that you make, it doesn't have to be totally straight up and down. I believe the one Kathy showed was a butterfly flying up alongside of a tree, and it really intrigued me. So maybe if I put this right here, you can see, well, I've got to find a way to display this so that you can see it as I'm talking about it. Sorry if I was out of camera there. Okay, so each, as in this piece, there's a piece on the outside that you want to go with your decor. There's the piece that you want to be the slider. And then there's the two pieces of the mechanism underneath that you don't see. And that's I think, the most important part. So on this example, I have a piece of cardstock here that I'm going to make the pattern on. This is going to be my top piece, which would be equal right here. Now, this doesn't have to be a specific size, but I'm calling this the slider holder. And this piece that I have is 5 1/4 by 1 1/4. Okay, so that's just a piece of cardstock or a piece of the designer series paper or printed paper, whatever you're using that goes along with your theme. So I thought that I would use this large fish and have it slide so that it can slide right across the page as if it was swimming. Now, I don't have all the paper components to create the theme, but I think you get the idea. If I glued this piece on the bottom, right here, this fish. And we had the fish that could swim along the top. I think that would be fun. Let's see what's on this side. Well, I suppose you could put a piece of fish up here and another piece down here, but I guess that's not as important. Okay, let's take the slider holder. What you're going to need to create, and I have to say these pieces are the most important part. I suggest, as many people do, is to use some paper that you're not saving for anything, even a color you don't like. Make it into your pattern. And then you'll have something to go back on instead of the one and only card that you made and oops, you gave it and you forgot to take a picture. So this, as I said, is your slider holder. Now the mechanism that allows the fish or whatever your icon is, your image, that allows it to move back and forth, it's going to work something like this. And there's some little hints I've learned from Kathy and from doing it myself. This doesn't have to be even, as you can see right here. It can just be a scrap. This is cardstock. This is basic white. So this basic white is a little bit lighter weight than the cardstock, but I wouldn't suggest using computer paper because it might tear. If the person is sliding it a lot, you want it to be firm. So before we attach that, here's your little slider here. And as I said, this is going to go back and forth across here, all right? But what I learned from Kathy is that you don't want to attach it so that it can wiggle like this. You want it close. You want to attach, you're going to staple this, and you want it close enough so it can smoothly ride. You don't want it down too far so it can tip, or you don't want it so tight that it won't move at all. So that's why I suggest you just get something that you practice with. So before I attach this to the underneath of our slider holder, I'm going to have to staple this piece on. So this piece right here is about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go in and staple it. I think you can see that as close to that edge as I can get. Well, it's a little crooked. Oh, I didn't follow my own directions, and guess what? Don't use something this small because it doesn't connect on the stapler. The staple goes right through it. Okay, I'm going to do this other piece here. Well, there was one hint that that I did just from experience. Okay, now let's do this again. So we don't want it way down here. We want it as close as can be without, well, I don't know, I feel like I'm failing at this. As close as can be without attaching it onto it. Does it still move? Yes, it still moves. Okay, see how close that is. There, okay. So this is your mechanism. And then she calls this a sheath, and maybe because it goes over the top or this goes in here, I don't know exactly. Not necessary to have a definite term. Okay, so that's going to attach to the back of that. See, you're going to be able to move it. And then you're going to put your image, I think it's even maybe more realistic if you put the top of it up over the edge. So when you discover how close you want it there, you're going to have to trim this off a bit before you glue it on. And remember, when we're working with glue now, Okay, that's the size of it there. When you're working with glue, you want to make sure, especially on something like this, that it could prevent it from moving. You want to make sure that you don't get glue any other place than right there, because it might stick accidentally. Okay, now you can see it there, that little bit of glue. Put this on. And this isn't attached yet to the slider holder, but you can see now that it is attached to this. So it's not that difficult. You just have to find, you know, you just have to find your happy medium. So I'm gonna make sure to put that flap, or I should say the fin of the fish, exactly where I want it to go. And now I'm gonna turn it over. Doesn't matter how it looks from behind, because you're not gonna see this. First, I'm gonna put just a little bit on the far end, right there. And some on this end. Use whatever glue you think will work best, but remember that you're only putting it on the ends because you want your slider to go back and forth. Now, once that is dry, we got to let it get a little dry. Okay. Does it work? It's a little tight, but it does work. So now you want to attach this layer on just the edges again, because you want this to be able to slide all the way across here. Don't put any, glue on top of it or anything. So it's just the glue on the edge here, like this. And as I said, this is just an example. I'm not sure I'm going to even finish this. And I could put this down here. So let's see here. Let's put some glue across here. I don't know where I'd put my sentiment, but I always post my finished cards, so you'll have to come back to see. So this could easily go right on here. You now have your slider that it's a little snug, but it does move it back and forth across here. I'm going to have to design some little piece to go in each card that says, this is a slider, move the fish, or see the fish swim, or something. And then you could put your message up there. So that's my example on this technique of a slider. Let's go over this again. So this piece right here is the slider holder. Underneath, there's the mechanism, and then the little piece that attaches poo to the sliding mechanism so that it can go up and down like this. So that's those two. I have one more that I'd like to show you and finish with you. This paper is also new, coming out in May, and it's called Waterside Retreat. And it has all sorts of things that have to do with maybe going to a cabin, fishing. There is a bicycle page. There's life preservers and paddles. There's subtle color backgrounds, lures and bobbers and life preservers. This is a very fun pattern. I think it would work not just for men, but it would work for anyone who's thinking about getting away at a retreat. So this is a print that I pulled out of there. And then what you see here then is my mechanism holder, which I've chosen the seagulls. That would go right here. And then I've hand cut some of the little seagulls out of the paper. Here's my mechanism here. So I've got this, I haven't stapled it yet. So I'm going to put it around here. I'm going to staple it really close there. I guess not on there. I'm going to attach, well, let me show you. Too many instructions at once. Okay, I'm coming around like this time. Guess I need another hand there. That's how close I got. It still moves. So I want these wings, I want the wings of the birds to go above it. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on each end here. And attach it to the back of my mechanism holder. Now I'm going to attach my mechanism holder, or slider holder, sorry, whatever term you want to use, right at the end so that my birds can slide back and forth. Now let's see how that works. Do they slide? Want to get their feathers up above, their wings above. Yes, it does. It does slide really nicely. So here's the card base. Would go on here, and you can see that even without sliding them, they really do look 3D, don't they? They would go back and forth across here, and then you would just finish the inside. So thanks for joining me today. I've had a lot of fun with this slider, and I think I'm going to be making some more of them. So please make sure to ask some questions. Thanks for joining me, and wherever you are today, go get creative. Bye for now.